The massive view screen on the Galactic Council's war room showed nothing but red dots. Each one represented a fallen defense station or destroyed ship. Council member Vren's blue skin had turned pale as he watched their last line of defense crumble against the Shroud Empire's attack. "We have lost contact with the Fifth Fleet," a young officer reported, his voice shaking. "The Shroud's bioships are adapting to our energy weapons faster than before." The council chamber, once a place of peaceful talks, now served as the last command center for their dying civilization. Tall windows showed the golden rings of the capital planet below, where billions of citizens from different species lived together. They had no idea how close the enemy was. Vren looked at the other council members. Their faces showed the same fear he felt. For 10,000 years, they had ruled the galaxy with their advanced technology. Energy shields, plasma weapons, and faster-than-light drives had made them feel safe. But none of that mattered now. The Shroud Empire's living ships could adapt to any weapon they used. "The 8th defense line has fallen," another officer called out. "Shroud bioships are pushing toward the core worlds. Time to arrival. 6 hours." An older council member slammed his fist on the table. How? How can one empire defeat the combined forces of 50 species? Our technology is superior in every way. "Superior technology means nothing if it doesn't work," Vren said quietly. He walked to the main control panel and pressed a button he thought he would never have to use. A small screen lit up, showing a simple text message. "Emergency Protocol 7. Counselor Vren, you can't be serious," someone behind him said. "You want to call them." Vren didn't turn around. "The humans have kept to themselves for a reason. We all thought they were primitive because they still used physical weapons and armor. We laughed at their ships, built like fortresses instead of works of art. But they are the only species in the galaxy who still use weapons that can't be adapted to. They're barely more than animals. Their ships don't even have proper energy shielding," another council member shouted. The argument stopped when a new alert flashed on the main screen. A ship had just appeared at the edge of their space, but it wasn't a shroud vessel. This one was different. Dark gray metal plates covered its hull like scales on an ancient creature. It was huge, nearly twice the size of their largest cruisers, and shaped like a spear pointing at the heart of battle. "What kind of ship is that?" someone whispered. Vren felt hope for the first time in days. "That's the Thunder's Edge, Earth's newest warship. They got our message." The room fell silent as a communication channel opened. A human voice, calm and clear, filled the chamber. "This is Captain James Walker of the Earth warship Thunder's Edge. We received your distress call. Request permission to enter Council space and engage hostile forces." Before anyone could object, Vren stepped forward. "Permission granted, Captain. The Shroud Empire has broken through our last defense line. They will reach our core worlds in 6 hours." "Understood, Counselor." There was a pause, and some council members thought they heard a small laugh from the human captain. "Don't worry. We've been preparing for something like this for a long time." Thunder's Edge, moving to engage. The massive human ship turned toward the incoming Shroud fleet. Its dark hull seemed to swallow the light from nearby stars. The council members watched in silence, some afraid, some curious, but all of them wondering the same thing. What could one human ship do against an enemy that had defeated their entire fleet? They were about to find out why humans had stayed away from galactic politics for so long. It wasn't because they were weak. It was because they had been getting ready for a day exactly like this one. Captain Walker stood on the bridge of Thunder's Edge, watching the Shroud fleet through the reinforced viewing window. His ship's dark metal hull reflected no light, making it look like a hole in space. The crew worked quietly at their stations, each trained for this moment. "Enemy ships closing in," Commander Black reported from her tactical station. "They're spreading out to surround us. Looks like they think we're easy prey." A small smile crossed her face as she said it. Walker touched the command panel, bringing up a detailed scan of the enemy fleet. The Shroud's bioships looked like giant insects made of bone and muscle. Their weapons were living things that adapted to any energy-based attack. That's why they had beaten the Council's advanced technology so easily. "Sir," Black said, receiving a transmission from the Shroud Fleet. "Put it through." A deep, echoing voice filled the bridge. "Primitive vessel, surrender now. Your metal shell cannot stand against our evolved perfection. We have defeated the Council's greatest weapons. You have no chance." Walker looked at his crew. They all knew what was about to happen. For 100 years, humanity had watched the galaxy from afar. While other species built prettier ships and fancier weapons, Earth had focused on something else. Pure, unstoppable force. "Show them the armor first," Walker ordered. "Let's see how they handle old-fashioned tungsten steel." The Shroud ships attacked. Their living weapons shot out like spears, trying to pierce the Thunder's edge. But instead of cutting through shields, they hit solid metal plates 2 meters thick. The weapons broke apart, unable to adapt to something so simple. "They're confused," Black reported, grinning. "Their biological sensors can't understand why their weapons aren't working. They're trying to evolve stronger attacks." Walker nodded. "Time to show them what we've been working on. Prepare the avalanche system." Deep inside the Thunder's edge, massive machinery came to life. The ship carried humanity's greatest weapon, not energy beams or plasma, but thousands of tungsten rods, each as long as a car. They were simple things, just pieces of metal. But when fired at near light speed, they hit harder than any energy weapon in the galaxy. "Avalanche system ready," Black announced. "Target locked on their command ship." "You know what they say about old-school weapons," Walker said. "They'd never go out of style." "Fire." The Thunder's edge shook as it launched the first rod. To the Council ships watching from far away, it looked like a silver streak crossing space. The Shroud command ship didn't even try to dodge. Their adaptive armor, designed to absorb energy weapons, meant nothing against simple physics. The rod hit with the force of a small nuclear bomb. It punched through the bioship like paper, leaving a clean hole straight through. The ship didn't explode. It just died, its biological systems failing instantly. "Multiple enemy ships changing course," Black reported. "They're trying to regroup." "I don't think they expected that." Walker watched as the Shroud fleet's perfect formation fell apart. "Launch full spread. Let's show them what happens when they pick a fight with the quiet kids." The Thunder's edge fired again. This time, hundreds of rods shot out in all directions. Each one found its target. Shroud ships died one after another, unable to adapt to such a simple form of attack. There was no defense against a piece of metal moving at near light speed. On the Council command station, the alien leaders watched in shock. They had always thought humans were behind the times, stuck in their old ways. Now they understood. Humanity hadn't been left behind. They had simply chosen a different path. "Send word to Earth Fleet Command," Walker ordered as the last Shroud ship fell. "Tell them the avalanche system works better than we hoped. And inform the Council that we're ready to help push these monsters back to whatever dark corner they came from." Commander Black looked up from her station. "Sir, the Council is calling. I think they have some questions about our primitive technology." Walker smiled. "I bet they do. Tell them we're happy to explain. After all, sometimes the old ways are the best ways." In the depths of space, the Thunder's edge floated among the broken remains of the Shroud fleet, its dark hull now scared from battle. It was proof that humanity had been right. In a galaxy full of evolving weapons and adaptive shields, sometimes a simple rod of metal, moving very, very fast, was all you really needed. The Council war room was silent except for the soft beeping of computers. Through the large windows, pieces of destroyed Shroud ships drifted by like dark snowflakes. The Thunder's edge hung in the center of the debris field, its huge gray hull now marked with battle scars. "Impossible," one of the Council members whispered. "They destroyed an entire Shroud battle group in minutes, with metal sticks." Vren watched the human ship with newfound respect. "Not sticks. kinetic weapons, moving so fast that nothing can stop them. While we made our weapons more complex, they made theirs more simple. The emergency alarm suddenly blazed to life. Red lights flashed across the command screens as a new wave of shroud ships jumped into the system. This group was 3 times larger than the last one, their bioships glowing with angry purple energy. They're charging weapons. An officer shouted. Multiple hostile ships on attack vectors. Before anyone could react, Captain Walker's voice came through the speakers. Council command, this is Thunder's Edge. We see them. Stand by for combat demonstration phase 2. The massive human ship turned to face the incoming shroud fleet. Its dark hull seemed to ripple as armored panels shifted and moved. New weapon ports opened along its sides, but these looked different from the avalanche system. What are they doing? Someone asked. They can't possibly have enough rods left to fight that many ships. The answer came when the first shroud ships got close. The Thunder's Edge released a cloud of what looked like metal dust into space. The council members watched in confusion as the dust spread out, forming a thick silver mist. Scanning the particles, a council scientist reported. They appear to be simple iron filings. Millions of them. The shroud fleet charged straight into the cloud. Their living ships started to change color, trying to adapt to whatever threat they thought was coming. But nothing happened. The dust just floated there, coating their hulls. Captain Walker's voice had a hint of satisfaction in it when he spoke again. Fun fact about shroud bioships, they breathe through their hulls. Like fish with gills, those iron particles are now clogging up their living armor. And this is what happens next. The Thunder's Edge fired up massive electromagnets hidden in its hull. The iron dust responded instantly, turning from a harmless cloud into millions of tiny projectiles. They ripped through the shroud ship's breathing holes, shredding their living armor from the inside out. Dozens of enemy ships started dying, suffocating in space. The survivors tried to retreat, but their organs were already failing. The council watched as ship after ship went dark, killed by nothing more than iron dust and magnets. Basic physics, Walker explained over the channel. No fancy energy weapons needed, just simple metal and magnetism. Sometimes the old ways work best. A younger council member turned to Vryn. Is this why humans stayed away from galactic politics? They were developing weapons like this. No, Vryn replied, finally understanding. They stayed away because they knew someday we might need weapons that the Shroud couldn't adapt to. They weren't being primitive. They were being prepared. The remaining Shroud ships tried one last attack. They fired their strongest biological weapons at the Thunder's Edge. The weapons splashed harmlessly against its thick armor, unable to pierce the simple metal plates. All hostile ships neutralized. Commander Black's voice reported. Area is secure. Requesting permission to begin rescue operations for damaged council vessels. The council members looked at each other. For centuries, they had thought of humans as backwards, stuck in their old ways of thinking. Now they realized that humanity's greatest strength was seeing value in things that others thought outdated. Permission granted, Vryn said. He watched as the Thunder's Edge moved to help the damaged council ships. Its hull was covered in scorch marks and dents, but it had survived something that had destroyed their most advanced vessels. In the space around them, the iron dust continued to sparkle like stars, turning the battlefield into a glittering graveyard of shroud ships. It was beautiful in a simple way, just like humanity's approach to warfare. Nothing fancy, nothing complex, just whatever worked best. News of the Thunder's Edge's victory spread across the galaxy like wildfire. In the great halls of the Shroud Empire's main hive, the Queen Mind gathered her commanders. For the first time in their history, the hive felt something new. Doubt. Show me again, the Queen Mind ordered. The battle footage played on floating screens around her chamber. She watched as the human ship's simple weapons tore through her best forces. How can metal and magnets defeat our perfect evolution? One of her commanders shifted nervously. The humans don't fight like the others. Great Queen. They don't try to match our biology. They just hit us with things we cannot adapt to. In another part of space, the Thunder's Edge received new orders from Earth Fleet Command. Captain Walker read them twice to be sure. They want us to push forward, he told his crew. Earth is sending more ships. We're going to take the fight to the Shroud's territory. Commander Black looked up from her station. The council representatives are requesting an emergency meeting, sir. I think our latest victory has them worried. The meeting room on the Thunder's Edge was simple, just metal walls and basic chairs. The council members who transported over looked out of place with their fancy robes and floating data pads. Walker sat at the head of the table, his uniform plain but clean. We need to discuss humanity's weapons, one council member said. His hands shook slightly. These kinetic weapons of yours, they're too powerful, too dangerous. There should be rules about such things. Walker leaned forward. Like the rules that failed to stop the Shroud. Sometimes the simplest solution is the best one. A rock thrown hard enough can break any window, no matter how advanced the glass is. But your ships, another council member argued. They're built like weapons from the start. Even your civilian vessels have thick armor and weapon mounts. What are you preparing for? Everything. Walker replied simply. Earth learned long ago that space is dangerous. So we built our ships to survive anything. The Shroud aren't the first threat we prepared for, and they won't be the last. On the bridge, Commander Black monitored the long-range sensors. Reports were coming in from across council space. The Shroud fleet was pulling back, avoiding any system where human ships might be. Their biological ships, used to adapting and evolving to overcome any weapon, had no answer for simple tungsten rods moving at near light speed. Multiple council defense fleets requesting to join our attack group, Black reported when Walker returned to the bridge. They want to learn our tactics. Walker smiled. Some council ships had already started adding thick armor plates to their hulls, copying the Thunder's Edge's design. Teach them. Show them that sometimes the old ways still work best. In the depths of Shroud space, fears spread through the hive mind. Their scouts reported more human ships entering the galaxy, each one built like a fortress of metal and magnets. The Queen Mind felt her children's confusion. How could they fight an enemy that used weapons too simple to adapt to? They hide in metal shells, she hissed to her commanders. They throw rocks through space. They fight like primitives, and they are beating us. Back on the Thunder's Edge, Walker received a new message from Earth. More ships were coming through, including the newly finished dreadnought Iron Mountain. Soon, they would have enough firepower to push deep into Shroud territory. Sir, Black called out, the council ships are asking about our next move. They want to know our strategy. Walker looked at the star map, where red dots showed Shroud territories. Tell them we'll show them how humans hunt. Sometimes you don't need fancy plans or complex strategies. Sometimes you just need to be strong, be simple, and hit hard where it hurts most. The Thunder's Edge turned toward Shroud space, its engines glowing blue against the darkness. Behind it, a mixed fleet of council and human ships formed up, ready to follow. The galaxy was changing. The age of pure energy weapons and biological evolution was ending. The time of tungsten rods, iron dust, and simple physics had begun. A fleet of 50 ships moved through the darkness of space. The Thunder's Edge led the way, with council ships and other human vessels following behind. Their target was the Shroud's biggest shipyard, deep in enemy space. Captain Walker stood on his bridge, watching the battle plan come together. All ships report ready, Commander Black said. The council crews are nervous, but they're holding formation. Walker nodded. Time to show them how humans fight. Begin Operation Trojan Horse. The Thunder's Edge sent out a signal. All around it, the fleet's engines shut down. The ships looked dead, drifting silently through space. Only their thick metal hulls kept their crews alive as they floated toward Shroud territory. Plain dead, Black said with a smile. The oldest trick in the book. The Shroud's patrol ships found them 6 hours later. The bioships approached carefully, their living sensors studying the seemingly dead fleet. They had learned to fear human ships, but these looked harmless now. "They're taking the bait," Walker whispered. "Let them get closer." The shroud ships moved in to investigate. They didn't notice the small dots floating among the debris. Hundreds of tungsten rods, released slowly over the past hours, waiting for the right moment. "Now," Walker ordered. The dead fleet came to life all at once. The Thunder's Edge's electromagnets activated, throwing the hidden tungsten rods at the surprised shroud ships. The rods cut through their biological armor before they could even begin to adapt. "First wave down," Black reported. "Beginning Phase 2. The Human Council fleet split into 3 groups, each heading for a different part of the shipyard. The Shroud Defenders rushed to stop them, exactly as planned. They still think like biological creatures," Walker explained to the Council ships. "They group up, like animals protecting their young. That makes them predictable." The Thunder's Edge released its iron dust cloud, but this time it was different. The dust was hot, heated by the ship's engines. When it hit the shroud ship's living hulls, it burned through their breathing holes like acid. "Simple chemistry," Walker said over the comm. "Heat plus biological tissue equals bad day for them." Deeper in the shipyard, other human ships showed new weapons. Simple things that the Council had forgotten about long ago. Chemical sprays that froze on contact. Metal nets that tangled in the bioship's moving parts. Small drones that attached themselves to enemy hulls and just drilled holes, letting space do the rest. The Council ships learned quickly. They stopped trying to use their energy weapons and started copying the human tactics. Some released their own clouds of metal dust. Others used their tractor beams to throw asteroids at the enemy. "They're running," Black announced as the last shroud ships tried to escape. "The shipyard is ours." Walker looked at the battlefield. The Shroud had lost one of their biggest bases to weapons they would have laughed at a month ago. Their mighty bioships had been defeated by dust, rocks, and simple physics. "Message from the Iron Mountain," Black said. "They've taken 3 more shroud systems using our tactics. The Council fleets are learning fast." On the captured shipyard, Walker met with Council commanders. They walked through halls filled with dying shroud technology, looking at the strange mix of biology and machinery. "I don't understand," one Council leader said. "Why didn't the Shroud adapt to these attacks? Their whole species is built on evolution." Walker picked up a piece of broken hull. "You can't evolve past physics. No matter how advanced you are, a rock thrown hard enough will still break bones." The Shroud forgot that simple truth. They thought evolution could solve everything. In the following days, more human ships arrived. Each one brought new primitive weapons that the Shroud couldn't counter. Ballistic missiles that split into thousands of pieces. Clouds of ceramic dust that clogged their engines. Simple radio waves that confused their biological sensors. The Council ships now had thick armor plates bolted to their hulls. Their crews trained in human tactics, learning to think simply and hit hard. The age of relying only on advanced technology was over. "The Shroud are falling back on all fronts," Black reported. "Our next target is their main hive system." Walker looked at the battle plans. Sometimes the best way to win wasn't to be more advanced. Sometimes you just had to remember the basics, and humanity had never forgotten them. The Great Council chamber was filled with angry voices. Representatives from 50 species argued as pictures of destroyed shroud worlds played on the screens. The Thunder's Edge floated outside the window, its battle-scarred hull a reminder of how much things had changed. "The humans have gone too far," one Council member shouted. "They're not just defeating the Shroud, they're destroying entire systems." Captain Walker stood calmly at the center of the room. His uniform was clean but worn, showing marks from months of constant battle. "The Shroud embed their hives deep in planets. Would you rather we let them keep breeding weapons to use against us?" Commander Black stood beside him, holding a data pad with their latest victory reports. The Joint Human Council fleet had pushed the Shroud back to their core systems, but each victory left more destruction in its wake. "Your weapons are too effective," another council member said. "A single human ship can destroy a whole planet's surface with those tungsten rods. It's too much power for any species to have." Walker looked out at the stars. He remembered the first battle, when the Thunder's Edge had arrived to save the Council. Now some of them feared humanity more than the Shroud. "Tell that to the billions who died before we came," he said quietly. "Tell that to the worlds the Shroud consumed while you tried to fight them with weapons that didn't work." In the Council fleet nearby, ships were being refitted with human-style weapons. Thick armor plates covered their once beautiful hulls. Kinetic launchers stuck out where energy weapons used to be. The Council was changing, learning to fight the human way. Not everyone was happy about it. "We should ban these weapons after the war," someone suggested. "Return to more civilized fighting." Black couldn't hold back a laugh. "Civilized fighting? Is that what you call watching your people die because you're too proud to use simple weapons that work?" The debate was interrupted by an emergency signal. A Shroud attack fleet had been spotted heading toward a civilian world. The Thunder's Edge and its battle group were the closest ships that could respond. "We're not done discussing this," a council member warned as Walker headed for the door. "No, we're not," Walker agreed. "But right now, there are people who need saving. That's what these weapons are for. That's why Earth made them." Back on his ship, Walker watched his crew prepare for battle. They were tired. Months of fighting had left them worn down, but they knew their mission wasn't just about winning anymore. It was about proving that humanity's way of war could save lives, not just take them. "Council ships are requesting to join us," Black reported. "Even after all that arguing, they still want to fight beside us." "Because they know we get results," Walker said. "Show me the tactical display." The Shroud fleet was bigger than expected. They had adapted their tactics, spreading out to avoid concentrated fire. But they still couldn't adapt to physics. No evolution could save them from a tungsten rod moving at near light speed. "All ships, prepare for combat," Walker ordered. "Remember your training. Keep it simple. Keep it strong. Just like Earth taught us." The Thunder's Edge moved into position, its weapons ready. The Council ships formed up around it, their new armor gleaming. They had learned that sometimes the old ways were best. Sometimes you had to set aside pride and use what worked. "Enemy ships in range," Black announced. "They're charging weapons." Walker looked at the tactical display one more time. The Shroud were desperate now, throwing everything they had into each battle. They fought like cornered animals, dangerous and unpredictable. "Launch avalanche spread," he ordered. "Full coverage. Don't let a single ship through." As the Thunder's Edge fired its simple but devastating weapons, Walker thought about the Council's fears. They were right to be afraid. Humanity had brought back the kind of warfare they had tried to forget. But sometimes survival meant doing the hard thing, the simple thing, the thing that worked even if it wasn't pretty. The tungsten rods streaked across space, leaving trails of light behind them. They were beautiful in their simplicity, just pieces of metal, moving very fast. Sometimes, that was all you needed to change the galaxy forever. The Shroud home system filled the Thunder's Edge's view screen. 5 planets circled a dying red star, each one covered in living hive cities. This was where it would end, one way or another. "All ships report ready," Commander Black said. Behind the Thunder's Edge, the largest fleet ever gathered waited for orders. Council ships flew beside human vessels, their crews no longer divided by old prejudices. They had learned to fight together, to trust each other. Walker looked at the battle plan one last time. "Send the message to the Shroud Queen Mind. Let's see if we can end this without more killing." The response came quickly. The Queen Mind's voice echoed through the bridge, a sound like thousands of insects speaking at once. "You think we fear your primitive weapons. This is our home. We will not surrender to creatures who throw rocks through space." "Those rocks have destroyed your empire," Walker replied calmly. "Your evolution can't save you from simple physics. Surrender, and we can find a way to live together. Fight, and we'll show you just how primitive we can be." The Queen Mind's laughter shook the speakers. "You'll have to kill us all. Every world, every hive. We do not fear death." "No," Walker said, "but you fear something else now. You fear the simple things, the things you can't adapt to. The basic truths of universe that all your evolution can't change." He nodded to Black. "Launch the gravity bombs." The Thunder's Edge released hundreds of small objects. They looked like metal balls, nothing special. But inside each one was a tiny artificial gravity generator built with simple human engineering. "Sometimes the old ways are best," Walker said as the bombs fell toward the Shroud Worlds. "Sometimes you just need to remember what gravity can do when you make it strong enough in a small space." The bombs activated. Each one created a gravity well strong enough to crush tanks. The Shroud's living cities, built to adapt to any weapon, couldn't evolve past the basic force of gravity. Their structures collapsed, pulled apart by simple physics. "Multiple hive structures failing," Black reported. "The Shroud fleet is moving to attack." Walker watched as the enemy ships charged forward. They had evolved thick armor, trying to copy human designs. But they still hadn't learned the most important lesson. Sometimes the simplest solution was the best one. "All ships, execute Operation Flashbulb," he ordered. Every human and council ship turned their engines to full power at once. The combined light and heat created a massive flash, brighter than the system's dying sun. The Shroud's biological sensors, evolved to see in darkness, were completely blinded. "Basic biology," Walker explained to the council ships. "Even evolved creatures need time for their eyes to adjust." The Thunder's Edge led the charge through the blinded Shroud fleet. They didn't use fancy weapons this time, just old-fashioned ramming speed, thick armor breaking through confused enemy ships. "The Queen Mind is sending another message," Black said. The voice was different now, quieter. "Afraid. Stop, please. We understand now. We surrender." Walker looked at his crew. They were tired, but proud. They had shown the galaxy that sometimes the best way forward was to remember the basics. "Send word to all ships," he ordered. "The war is over." In the days that followed, the council changed. They stopped looking down on primitive technology. Human ships became a common sight in their fleets, teaching others that simple solutions often worked best. The Shroud learned to live in peace. Their endless evolution turned toward creating rather than destroying. They had learned the hard way that some forces, gravity, momentum, simple physics, couldn't be adapted to. Walker stood in the council chamber one last time. The Thunder's Edge was going home, its mission complete. Outside, council ships now carried thick armor and kinetic weapons alongside their energy beams. "We feared you at first," Vren told him. "We thought bringing back old weapons would make the galaxy more dangerous. But you taught us something important. Sometimes the simple answer is the right answer." "Just remember," Walker said, "these weapons are tools, nothing more. It's how you use them that matters." As the Thunder's Edge headed back to Earth, Walker thought about everything that had changed. The galaxy had learned that being advanced didn't always mean being complicated. Sometimes victory came from remembering the basics, from keeping things simple and strong. The ship's engines glowed blue against the darkness of space, pushing it toward home. Behind it, a changed galaxy looked to the future, ready to face whatever came next, with both advanced technology and simple wisdom.